There's a sponge. It's tied to the end of a wooden stick, sitting in a little bucket of water in the corner of a public bathroom in the middle of Rome. And over the course of today, somewhere around 30 complete strangers are going to pick it up, use it, rinse it, and put it back. Hold that picture in your head for a second, because we are coming back to that sponge, and I promise you the full story is so much worse than you're imagining right now. But here's the thing that really gets people. That sponge, in a Roman's day, it doesn't even crack the top 5 weirdest things that happen before sundown. So let me make you a deal. In the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through one ordinary day in ancient Rome, hour by hour, from the moment a Roman opens his eyes to the moment he passes out on a couch covered in fish sauce. And along the way, I'm going to answer 3 things that sound completely made up but are absolutely real. 1. Why a rich, powerful Roman woke up every single morning to find a crowd of strangers standing inside his house, just waiting for him. 2. Why the city of Rome was eerily quiet during the day and an absolute nightmare at night. And 3. Why these people paid taxes on pee, actual taxes, on urine. Stick with me, because by the end you're going to know exactly what a Roman did from 5 in the morning until he collapsed at night. And honestly, you're going to recognize way more of yourself in him than you'd like to. Let's start with the alarm clock, or rather, the complete and total lack of one. Here's something almost nobody tells you about ancient Rome. They didn't really know what time it was, ever. See, the Romans split the daylight, sunrise to sunset, into 12 hours. Sounds normal, right? Except they kept it at 12 hours all year round. Which means in summer, when the days are long, each hour stretched out to about 75 minutes. And in winter, when the days are short, an hour shrank down to about 45. So a Roman hour was basically a rubber band. It got longer in July and shorter in December, and everyone just accepted this. Imagine telling a friend, meet me at the 3rd hour, and that meaning a totally different real-world time depending on the season. Their entire schedule wobbled with the sun. And believe it or not, that's the most organized part of the day we're about to see, because the actual morning begins with horror, not violence. Worse, networking. Picture a wealthy Roman, big house, important man. He opens his eyes at dawn, and his home is already full of people, not friends, not family. A crowd of men in togas standing in his entrance hall who showed up before sunrise just to see him. These were his clients, and the ritual was called the salutatio, the morning greeting. Every single morning, a Roman big shot would receive this little army of dependents who came to pay their respects, ask for favors, beg for help with a lawsuit, maybe a loan, maybe a quiet word in the right ear, and in return, the patron handed out the sportula. Originally, that was a small basket of food. Later, it basically turned into cash, a daily allowance for showing up and being loyal. So let that sink in. Your morning routine, as a regular Roman, was to wake up in the dark, put on your good toga, walk across the city, and stand in a rich man's lobby so he could see your face and maybe toss you the ancient equivalent of lunch money every single day. And the more clients crowded your hallway, the more powerful you looked. It was a flex. A man's whole status was measured by how many people woke up at 5 a.m. just to stand around in his house, which, when you think about it, is exactly how this works too, because that's basically what subscribing is. The Romans had to physically walk to their patron's door every morning, in person, in a toga, just to stay on his list. You get the lazy version. No pre-dawn walk, no toga, no basket of cold food. You just tap the subscribe button once, and boom, you're one of my people. Do that right now, and we'll keep this little patron and client relationship going, except I promise to never make you stand in my hallway. Deal? Good. Back to Rome. So our Roman has done his rounds, collected his little basket, paid his respects. Now he actually has to, work. And here's where you're going to start resenting these people, because the Roman workday was short, offensively short. Most work wrapped up around midday or just after. The morning was for business. The afternoon was for everything else. A craftsman, a shopkeeper, a baker would open early, grind through the morning, and by the time the sun hit its peak, a huge chunk of the city was basically done for the day. Sit with that the next time you're answering emails at 6 in the evening. And lunch? Lunch was barely a thing. For most Romans, lunch was something quick, grabbed standing up. Because here's a detail that completely changes how you should picture the whole city. Most ordinary Romans did not have a kitchen. They lived in towering apartment blocks called insulae, packed in floor after floor, and these buildings were cramped, flammable death traps with no running water up top and absolutely no safe place to light a cooking fire. Lighting a fire in a wooden apartment stacked 5 stories high is how you become a tragic historical footnote, so they didn't. They ate out. Rome ran on fast food. On nearly every corner there was a thermopolium, a sort of ancient snack bar with an L-shaped stone counter and big clay jars sunk right into it to keep food and drink warm. You'd walk up, point at something, and get a hot bowl of whatever they had. Stew, lentils, bread, cheese, wine. It was cheap, it was fast, it was greasy, and it was the daily reality for thousands of people who had no other way to get a hot meal. We talk about grabbing takeout on the way home like it's some modern, busy person invention. The Romans were doing it 2,000 years ago because their landlord wouldn't let them have a stove, and onto a lot of that food went the single most Roman ingredient of all time, garum. Garum was a fish sauce. But I need you to understand how they made it, because it is genuinely spectacular. You take fish, guts included, the parts you'd normally throw away, you pack it in salt, and then you leave it out in the sun. For months, you let it slowly rot in the heat until it breaks down into a salty, pungent liquid. Then you strain it, bottle it, and pour it on basically everything you eat. Meat, vegetables, even stirred into wine and water. To us, that sounds like a war crime. To them, it was ketchup. It was the flavor of the entire empire, this funky, fermented, fishy umami juice, and they could not get enough of it. The cheap stuff was an everyday condiment. The premium stuff was a luxury people paid serious money for. Rotten fish, top dollar. Okay, the workday's done. Lunch is a memory. The sun is high. And now we arrive at the absolute center of a Roman's entire day, the one place where everything happened, the baths. Now, you have to throw out the modern idea of taking a bath. For a Roman, the public baths weren't about getting clean and leaving. They were the gym, the spa, the social club, the business meeting, the gossip mill, and the local news, all crammed into one giant steamy building. After work, people from every walk of life, rich, poor, powerful, nobody, all streamed into the baths together. You'd exercise, sweat in hot rooms, plunge into cold pools, get scraped down, get a massage, cut deals, trade rumors, and just hang out for hours. It was the beating heart of the whole city, free or nearly free, open to almost everyone, and absolutely packed. And it's right here in this beautiful social paradise that we return to the sponge, because attached to these grand bath complexes and scattered all around the city were the public toilets. And a Roman public toilet was not what you'd call a private experience. Picture a long stone bench with a row of holes cut into it, side by side, no walls, no dividers, no doors, just a room full of people sitting next to each other, doing their business, casually chatting. Going to the bathroom was a social activity. You might close a business deal mid-poop next to a total stranger, and there was no toilet paper. What there was that sponge on a stick I told you about at the very beginning, the tersorium, one sponge fixed to a wooden handle that you used to clean yourself, then rinsed in a channel of running water or a bucket, and left there for the next person. There it is. I told you we'd come back to it. One shared communal sponge in a room full of strangers, no walls, passed from hand to hand. Now you understand the bucket. And honestly, you may now unimagine it with my blessing. But here's where the Romans go from gross to weirdly genius, because they wasted nothing, especially not pee. The Romans figured out that stale urine is basically a free cleaning chemical. When pea sits and breaks down, it produces ammonia, and ammonia is fantastic at cutting through grease and grime, so they collected it. There were people whose actual job involved gathering urine, and laundries, run by guys called fullers, would soak wool and clothing in big vats of it, then have workers stomp around in that urine with their bare feet to clean and brighten the fabric. So your nice, clean white toga, washed in pee, stomped by a stranger in a tub of pee, and it gets better because they didn't stop at laundry. The Romans believed urine whitened your teeth, so some of them used it as mouthwash. They swished pee around their mouths to get that bright, healthy, confident smile. It was even mixed into tooth cleaning powders. So picture our Roman one more time. Clean toga washed in urine, gleaming smile rinsed in urine. The man is, in a very real and very literal sense, held together by pee. And then, of course, someone realized you could tax it. The Emperor Vespasian famously slapped a tax on the urine trade, the stuff being collected from public toilets and sold off to the laundries. And when his own son turned up his nose at the idea of making money off of pee, Vespasian supposedly held up a gold coin, told him to give it a sniff, and asked if it stank. It didn't, and that supposedly is where the saying, "money doesn't smell," comes from. A Roman emperor proudly defending his pee tax. There's your second promise, paid in full. They really did tax the urine. Now, our Roman is clean, he's fed, his teeth are sparkling with you-know-what. The afternoon's rolling on, and it's time for the main event of Roman leisure. And it is not what you think it is. When you picture Roman entertainment, you picture the Colosseum, right? Gladiators, sand, lions, the whole show. And the Colosseum was huge. It held maybe 50,000 people. But here's the plot twist almost nobody knows. The Colosseum was not the biggest show in town. It wasn't even close. The real obsession, the thing that genuinely consumed Rome, was chariot racing. And the place they did it, the Circus Maximus, was an absolute monster. It could hold somewhere around 150,000 people. Some ancient writers swear it was 250,000 screaming fans in one place. Next to that, the Colosseum was the little cousin, and the fans were completely unhinged. Romans didn't really cheer for individual drivers. They cheered for teams, known by their colors, the reds, the whites, the blues, and the greens. And people picked a color and stuck with it for life. They lived and died by it. Riots broke out over it. Your team color was your identity, your tribe, the thing you screamed yourself hoarse over while chariots thundered around the track inches from death. So if you've ever painted your face for a sports team and lost your voice yelling at players who genuinely cannot hear you, congratulations. You are a Roman. Nothing has changed. We just swapped the horses for a ball. And then, as the sun starts to drop, our Roman heads toward the final ritual of the day, dinner, the cena. For a wealthy Roman, dinner was the social Olympics. You did not sit at a table like some peasant. You reclined. Guests lay on their sides on couches arranged around a central table, propped up on one elbow, eating with their hands while slaves carried in course after course. There was an appetizer, a main event, and a dessert, and at a fancy dinner, the whole thing could stretch on for hours, with music, entertainment, and a serious amount of wine, almost always watered down, because drinking it straight was considered a barbarian move, and the menu at the very top end got wild. We're talking dormice, yes, little fattened up edible mice, served as a delicacy, flamingo tongue, exotic, absurd, expensive, and designed entirely to make the host look rich. Now, this is the part where I have to stop you, because I know exactly what's coming. You've heard that the Romans would eat until they were stuffed, then stroll off to a special room called a vomitorium, throw it all back up, and return to keep eating. The decadent vomit room. It's in the movies. It's in the books. People absolutely love this fact. It's not true. A vomitorium was real, but it had nothing whatsoever to do with vomiting up your dinner. A vomitorium was an architectural feature, the passageways in a stadium or amphitheater that let huge crowds pour in and out quickly. The name comes from the idea of the building spewing people out into their seats. That's it. That's the whole thing. The story about rich Romans having a designated barfing lounge between courses got invented much, much later, and it stuck around because, let's be honest, it's an incredibly fun thing to believe. So no, they were not sprinting off to a vomit room between the appetizer and the main. Sorry to ruin the party. So now it's dark. Our Roman is full, a little drunk, lying flat on his couch, and finally I can pay off my third promise. The one about the city being calm by day and a nightmare by night. Here's why. Back in the time of Julius Caesar, Rome had a brutal traffic problem. The streets were narrow and constantly jammed with carts during the day, so a law went out. No wheeled freight carts allowed in the city during daylight hours. Problem solved, right? Lovely, clear streets in the daytime. Except, where do you think all those carts went? They didn't vanish. They just moved to the night. So while our Roman is lying there trying to sleep, the entire city's deliveries are happening all at once, in the dark, on stone streets. Heavy wooden carts with iron-rimmed wheels, grinding over stone, drivers shouting, animals braying, all night long. Rome by day was strangely peaceful. Rome at night sounded like the end of the world. The Romans basically invented the experience of being kept awake by traffic noise, and then they complained about it in writing 2,000 years ago. So, what did the ancient Romans actually do all day? Here's the real answer, the thing sitting underneath all of it. They lived almost their entire lives in public. Think about everything we just walked through. They woke up to a house full of strangers. They worked shoulder to shoulder. They ate standing up at street counters. They bathed together, naked by the hundreds. They went to the bathroom in a row, no walls, sharing one sponge. They screamed together in a stadium packed with 250,000 people. They ate dinner lying down in a room full of guests. A Roman was almost never, ever alone. The whole day, from that pre-dawn lobby to that late-night couch, was performed in front of other people. And status was the engine behind every bit of it. Who showed up at your door, how many clients you had, whose dinner you got invited to, what color you screamed for. And here's the part I warned you that you'd hate. For all the togas and the gods and the rotten fish sauce, take 2 steps back and just look at the shape of their day. They lived on fast food because they had no kitchen. They obsessed over their sports teams to the point of actual riots. They complained about traffic and noise. They cared desperately about being seen with the right people. They wanted whiter teeth. They lived for the weekend at the arena. Strip away 2,000 years and the costume, and a Roman's day looks unsettlingly like yours. The only real difference, you've got toilet paper and one shared sponge on a stick to thank for ever feeling grateful about it. Oh, and one last thing. The Romans picked a color and stayed loyal to it for their entire lives. Reds, blues, greens, to the death. So go ahead and pick yours. That subscribe button is right there, and consider this your team now. No chariots required.